What's going on, guys? What's going on, everybody? What's going on? So, Chris Paul, Chris Paul, Chris Paul is going to be a free agent this off season, and there's rumors of different teams that will be interested in him, and he doesn't want to go back the to the San Antonio first. And I'm going to say this: Chris Paul is a amazing point guard. Chris Paul is an amazing point guard. And when you have an amazing point guard like Chris Paul on your roster, like this is something that something that other teams I think would like is to have a Chris Paul on their team. And I'm going to say this is that with Chris Paul like interested in going back to Los Angeles and playing and going back to Los Angeles and playing on the Clippers and the Clippers being interested. It seems like he's got a lot of teams to choose from. Chris Paul has made a NBA Finals, has been on 6 different NBA teams. And we all know that from a fact that when Chris Paul, when his career is done and it's all said and done, Chris Paul is going to be that type guy that will want to help you win, will want to help you win. And like we can say he has 1,200 assists in NBA history. Like when we look at the great point guards like a Steph Curry, like a Jason Kidd, like a Steve Nash, when we like a Kyrie, when we look at those point guards, we can say Chris Paul is in that conversation. Because Chris Paul has been to an NBA Finals, has been to an NBA Finals, has been to a NBA Finals, has been in the playoffs every once in a year. Now Chris Paul knows how to play off the ball. Chris Paul knows how to play off the ball. And we get that. We get that Chris Paul knows how to play off the basketball. And we get that. But with Chris Paul is that when we look at him, he's 40 years old now. He's 40 years old now. I think Chris Paul can still play at the level that he's playing because Chris Paul came into the league averaging 28 or 23 points a game. And now he's averaging 8.8 points a game, I think. And when we look at what Chris Paul has done, he, on all 6 teams that he has been on, has either been a playoff team or a play-in team or not a playoff team. Chris Paul, for the last 6 years, being on 6 different NBA teams, we can say that Chris Paul wants to win a championship. We can say that. We can say that Chris Paul wants to win a championship. That's the main goal for Chris Paul, is to win a championship. Because he made the NBA Finals with Devin Booker. In the Phoenix Suns. The only way I can see him going back to the first is if he decides to, if the first somehow trade for Kevin Durant or trade for Giannis, I can see him going to the first. But right now, the only two teams that I can see Chris Paul being interested in is the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. I could see Chris Paul being interested in the Los Angeles Clippers or the Dallas Mavericks. Because here's the thing I'm about to point out is that with the Dallas Mavericks, you got the number one pick. You're honestly going to take Cooper Flag. You got Anthony Davis. Kyrie's going to come back from his injury. I hope 100% better. But you have those type of guys on the Dallas Mavericks that was a playing team. And when we look at the Clippers, when we look at the Lakers, that might make a run in to get Chris Paul. Like, I can see him going to the Lakers. I can see him going to the Clippers. I can see him going to the Dallas Mavericks. But honestly, I think the only two teams that I see that makes a lot of sense for Chris Paul is the Dallas Mavericks or the Los Angeles Clippers. Just because Chris Paul has been there already. And I can see him winning a championship because he has played with James Harden. He hasn't played with Kawhi yet. But I can see Chris Paul going back to the Clippers because Chris Paul wants to finish his career with either the Los Angeles Lakers or the Clippers. And I can say this is that Chris Paul has been to an NBA Finals. Chris Paul is a Hall of Famer point guard. Chris Paul has done it all in his career. We need to give Chris Paul more respect because when we see the greats like a John Starks, a John Starks, John Stockton, Steph Curry, Kyrie, when we see those guys, Chris Paul has to be in that conversation. But in other news, the Fever versus the Sky, WNBA, the Fever dominates the Sky 79-52. And this rivalry, the Fever versus the Sky, we can say is probably like the best rivalry in sports because Caitlin Clark didn't play this game. I think the Fever will make the playoffs. The Fever will make the playoffs, and I definitely can see that happening. I can definitely see the Fever I could definitely see the Fever making the playoffs after beating this guy. Even though you got two more matchups against this guy and the Sky are 2-5, and like the Fever are 4-4. There was no Caitlin Clark this game playing. There was no Caitlin Clark in this game playing. I think once Caitlin Clark gets more healthy, when Caitlin Clark gets 100% back and more healthy, I think Caitlin Clark is still going to be in that MVP discussion because that's what she was last year. Caitlin Clark finished fourth in the voting last year in MVP. But when you have like certain players like Bonner showing up with 6 points, Boston, LA Boston, Alina Boston scoring 11 against the Sky. Like certain players like that, you got a good team in that. But on the Sky side of things, like you let the Fever put up 79 points on you. Angel Reese, 12 rebounds, 2 and 4. I think the Fever did a good job by guarding Angel because we know Angel's going to get probably 12, 15 boards a night because that is what Angel Reese does. Angel Reese, in my opinion, is an amazing WNBA player. But when we're talking about how the W has been around 25 plus years, and when we see rivalries come up like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, which Caitlin Clark did not play this game, we can ask ourselves, what played a factor in this game? Like, there had to be a big factor because of the first game of the season between these teams. And because of what's going on for the W, which I think is not right what is going on for these WNBA players. But at the end of the day, the Fever gets the win without Caitlin Clark on the floor. Like when we look at Haley Van only scoring 7 points this game, like she's still a tribute. Angel still a tribute for the Sky. But I just think like the Fever are just too much right now. Like there's still more time to go because now the Sky has, I think, a game. The Sky is going against the Chicago Sky is going against the New York Liberty, the champs this week. So I think like this was probably like just a dominant win because now the Fever are up 2-0 in the regular season over the Sky, and you have to win a game here to. I think the next meeting in the regular season between the Sky and the Fever will be something that we would have to keep like a good competitive thing going on. But guys, sub if you're new and never give up your dreams. And I hope all of you guys are safe out there and stay blessed, everybody, and peace.